Last year I died. At least they hoped I would. My name is Tessa Reynolds. I'm 29, the CEO of a small healthcare startup in Seattle. People always think that means I have it all together. But I didn't build my company out of ambition. I built it because I was desperate to prove I mattered. Growing up in Portland, I did everything right. I brought home perfect report cards, helped around the house, never talked back. I thought that would earn me love. But in my family, love was reserved for Emily. Emily is 26, a nurse in her residency program and the light of my parents' lives. I can still hear Dad's voice at family dinners laughing about how Emily always made him proud. Mom would nod, eyes soft, while Emily told stories from the hospital, stories that made them beam. When I talked about my startup, they would smile politely, then ask Emily about her next rotation. I tried to ignore it, to tell myself it didn't matter. But the truth is, it hurt. It hurt every time Mom brushed off my calls, too busy helping Emily move apartments or cooking Emily's favorite meals. It hurt when Dad offered to pay for Emily's graduate loans while reminding me that I was so independent. Independent, their word for alone. After Grandma June passed, things shifted. She had left behind her old Craftsman home in Northeast Portland, the only place that ever felt safe. She used to tell me, "You're going to change the world, Tessa." That house was meant to be mine, a place to finally rest after years of building something from nothing. Then I found out Dad and Mom had mortgaged the house without telling me. Their real estate company was drowning and they used Grandma's house as a lifeline. They planned to sell it to erase their debts to save their pride. They never asked me, never even told me. I confronted Dad one rainy afternoon standing in the driveway while he loaded boxes into his truck. "Dad, you took Grandma's house. You didn't even tell me." His jaw tightened. "You have your own life, Tessa. Emily and the family needed help." "Emily, this isn't about Emily, is it? Don't start with that tone," he snapped, slamming the tailgate. "You've always managed on your own." I stood there drenched, feeling that old emptiness in my chest. I had spent my whole life trying to be enough. I was tired. That night, I stayed late at the office in Seattle, finishing up a new software update for our coma patient monitoring system. If it worked, it could change how hospitals detect consciousness in unresponsive patients. Emily would have loved to tell me how it helped her patients if she even cared to ask. It was past 10 when I finally packed up, pulling my raincoat tight as I stepped into the storm. My apartment was only 15 minutes away. I thought about calling a rideshare, but the rain felt like it belonged to me that night, washing away the anger that clung to my skin. The streets were slick, headlights blurry through the downpour. I stopped at a red light on Madison, watching the wipers fight to clear the windshield. A notification buzzed on my phone, an email from my team letting me know the update had passed its final test. A small smile touched my lips. For a moment, I let myself feel proud. That's when the light turned green and I eased into the intersection. I saw the headlights before I heard the screech of tires, impossibly bright, cutting through the rain. My breath caught and there was nothing but the sound of metal tearing, glass shattering, the world flipping upside down. Then darkness. I woke to voices that didn't sound real. They were muffled, drifting through thick darkness that pressed against me. I tried to move, but my body didn't respond. I couldn't open my eyes, couldn't speak. All I could do was listen. "She's stable for now, but her injuries are severe." A woman's voice, calm, professional. "What does that mean exactly?" That was Dad. "Harold Reynolds, always controlled, always cold. She has a traumatic brain injury, multiple fractures, and internal bleeding. We've placed her in a medically induced coma to reduce the swelling." Silence. The beep of a monitor. The soft hiss of air from a ventilator. "Will she make it, Dad?" again. A pause. "The next 24 hours are critical." I tried to scream to let them know I was here, that I was fighting, but the darkness swallowed me. Then Mom's voice, Linda, sharp like it always was when she was stressed. "Are we responsible for any of this? The bills, the decisions?" "I'm sorry," the doctor replied, confusion in her tone. "Tessa isn't really our daughter," Dad said, his voice smooth, almost rehearsed. "We took her in, but we're not legally responsible." A rush of static filled my ears. I thought I might vomit, but I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't even cry. "Mr. Reynolds, she has you listed as her emergency contact." We can't take this on, Mom snapped. She's not our responsibility. The doctor's voice changed, becoming clipped cold. Without family consent, we will proceed under emergency authorization. That's your choice, Dad said. Footsteps. The door opening and closing. Silence. I was alone, trapped in a broken body with the truth crashing into me harder than the car that hit me. They wanted me gone. They wanted me out of their lives so they could keep the house, save their company, and keep pretending they were perfect parents to Emily. I don't know how long I floated in that darkness. Minutes, hours, days. I heard nurses moving around me, machines beeping, the rustle of paper. Once someone held my hand and a soft voice whispered, "You're not alone." I wanted to believe that. But in the darkness, all I could hear were their voices replaying over and over. She's not our responsibility. We owe her nothing. She isn't really our daughter. If you've ever wondered what betrayal feels like, it feels like being trapped in your own body, screaming with no sound, realizing the people you thought would fight for you would rather you died. Sometimes I heard Emily's voice, distant, shaking. "Is she going to be okay? She's stable," someone would say. Then silence. Was Emily fighting for me, or was she just there to watch me slip away? I didn't know. One night the room was quiet except for the hum of machines and the rain tapping against the window. A nurse was humming softly as she adjusted my blankets. Her name was Megan, and her voice was the only warmth in that cold place. "Hang in there, Tessa," she whispered. "Don't let them win." I clung to that. I clung to her words like a lifeline, promising myself that if I made it out, I would never let them control me again. When the darkness would lift for a moment, I would see flashes of light, the white ceiling of the ICU, Megan's face above me, her dark eyes, kind but tired. And I would remember. They left me. They left me to die. And as I drifted back into the dark, I made a promise. If I survived, I would make sure they regretted ever wishing I hadn't. What would you have done if you were me? Have you ever been in a situation like this? Share in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. Because trust me, you'll want to hear what happened next. What would you do if you heard your own parents leaving you to die? The darkness was thick, pressing against every inch of me. I couldn't move, couldn't open my eyes, couldn't even twitch a finger. But I could hear every single word. The machines beeped steadily, a reminder that I was still here even if they didn't want me to be. "She's stable, but we need to move forward with surgery to reduce swelling," the doctor said, her voice calm. "How much is that going to cost?" Dad's voice. Harold Reynolds. Always about numbers, never about people. "It's not a small expense," the doctor replied. "But without it, her chances, she's not worth it." That was Mom, Linda Reynolds. Her voice tight, like she was discussing a late mortgage payment, not her daughter's life. My chest burned, but my body didn't move. "Mrs. Reynolds," the doctor said, sounding shocked. "You don't understand," Dad cut in. "We have another daughter, Emily. She's in med school, she's doing everything right. She deserves that house. She deserves the future. Tessa. She's always been difficult, always too much. Too much." The words echoed like a gunshot inside me. "We can't afford this," Mom snapped. "We're already losing the company, and now this. We're not bankrupting ourselves for her." "We will proceed under emergency authorization," the doctor said, her voice clipped, professional. "That's your choice," Dad said, his tone final. Footsteps, the sound of the door closing. The beep of the machine matched the pounding in my head. They left me. They actually left me. All I had ever done was try to be enough. I got scholarships so they wouldn't have to pay for college. I started my own company so I wouldn't ask them for help. I built something from nothing, hoping they would see me, hoping they would finally say they were proud. But in the end, I was just a burden. She's not worth it. They didn't know I could hear them. They didn't know that every word they said was carving itself into me deeper than any injury the crash could cause. I heard the nurse Megan, her quiet voice close to my ear. "You're not alone, Tessa," she whispered, adjusting the tubes near my face. "Don't you dare give up." I clung to her words like a drowning person clings to a lifeboat. But then, I heard them again outside my room, voices hushed but clear enough. "The house will sell for at least $800," Dad said. "That will cover the debts," Mom replied, sounding relieved. What about Emily? She's fine with it. She knows it's to save the family. She knows Tessa would want that. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell them I didn't want that the house was all I had left of Grandma June, the only place that felt like safety. But I couldn't. They were selling my future, my memories, everything I had left, and justifying it by saying I would have wanted it. I was nothing to them but an obstacle. If you've ever wondered what betrayal feels like, it's the sound of your parents planning to sell your life while you're too broken to stop them. It's the sound of your mother saying you're not worth saving. It's the silence that follows when you realize no one is coming to fight for you. Not even your own family. The rain tapped against the window, steady, uncaring, while they continued to discuss selling the house, saving the company, and letting me go. And in that darkness, I made a promise to myself. If I survived this, I would never let them destroy me again. I started counting the beeps of the monitor to keep myself sane. Sometimes Megan would come in humming softly, brushing my hair back from my forehead, telling me about the weather outside. She didn't know I could hear every word. She didn't know she was the only thing keeping me tethered to this world. Other times it was just silence. Silence and the soft hiss of the ventilator reminding me that machines were keeping me alive when my family wouldn't. Then one day I heard a voice I hadn't heard in what felt like forever. Is she going to wake up? It was Emily. Her voice cracked on the last word. She's fighting, Megan said gently. She's stronger than she looks. I don't know what to do, Emily whispered. There was a rustle like Megan was squeezing her hand. Just be here, Megan replied. Emily let out a shaky breath. They're selling Grandma's house. Megan didn't say anything. They said it's what she would have wanted. They said it's what Tessa would have wanted. My sister's voice broke and, for a moment, I felt something twist in my chest. I don't think that's true, Emily said so quietly I almost didn't hear it. Then she left, her footsteps fading down the hall. I lay there trapped, wanting to scream. Wanting to tell her she was right, that I didn't want them to sell the house, that it was the only place that ever felt like home. Days passed, or maybe weeks. Time didn't exist for me anymore. Doctors would come in adjusting machines, checking charts. Nurses whispered to each other, unaware that I could hear every word. Her insurance should cover most of it, one nurse said. Her parents are refusing to give consent for surgery, another replied. They can't do that, can they? They're claiming she's not really their daughter. It's messy. It's cruel, the first nurse said. Cruel. That was the word. It wasn't complicated or messy or hard to understand. It was cruel. They were letting me die while pretending they were victims. One night I heard Dad's voice again outside the door. We have to let it go, Linda, he said. Do you think Emily will understand? Mom asked. She will. She always does. They left just like that. Left me to die so they could save their company, so they could save Emily's future, so they could pretend they were still the perfect family. I started counting the beeps again. 1, 2, 3. I didn't know how many days I had left, but I knew one thing. If I ever opened my eyes again, I would never let them take anything else from me. Have you ever felt abandoned by the people who were supposed to protect you? Share your story in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. Because this is far from over. I was going to wake up. And I was going to make them pay. I remember the way Emily used to braid my hair when we were kids. She would sit behind me on Grandma June's porch, her small fingers tugging too hard, the scent of the roses drifting on warm summer air. I would yelp and she would giggle, her laugh like wind chimes. That memory came to me as I lay there stuck in a body that refused to move, listening to the soft hum of the machines and the rain tapping against the window. It was strange, the things your mind clings to when you're close to dying. Megan's shoes squeaked as she entered the room. I could almost feel the shift in the air when she leaned over me, checking the IV, brushing a strand of hair off my forehead. You're doing good, Tessa, she whispered. Don't give up. She hummed under her breath, a soft melody that filled the sterile room with something like hope. Then I heard it, the soft knock on the door, the hesitant footsteps. Can I see her? Emily's voice was small, almost like a child again. Of course, Megan said, her voice warm. I felt a hand slip into mine, small and trembling. Oh God, Tessa, Emily whispered, her breath catching. I'm so sorry. Her thumb brushed over my knuckles the same way she used to hold my hand when she was scared during thunderstorms. "They don't know I'm here," Emily said, her voice shaking. "Mom and Dad. They're wrong. They're so wrong." She let out a shaky breath, her fingers tightening around mine. "They keep saying you would want this, that you would want them to sell the house to save the company, to save us, but I know you, Tessa. You would fight for that house. You would fight for Grandma's memory." I wanted to squeeze her hand to let her know she was right, but my body wouldn't listen. "They're lying." Tess, Emily's voice cracked. "They're lying to everyone, and I don't know what to do." I heard her start to cry, soft sobs that tore at something deep inside me. "I'm so sorry I didn't say anything," she whispered. "I should have fought for you. I should have told them they were wrong. I should have done something." She pressed her forehead against our joined hands, her tears warm against my skin. "I miss you," she whispered. Footsteps approached, and Emily quickly wiped her face, pulling her hand away. Emily, Mom's voice sharp and tired. "What are you doing in here? I wanted to see her." Emily replied, her voice steadier now. "We don't have time for this," Mom snapped. "We need to meet with a lawyer about the sale." "Mom, she's your daughter," Emily said, a small spark of anger in her tone. "She's a complication," Mom replied coldly. "We need to focus on the family that's still here." I felt something inside me crack like a thin sheet of ice breaking under too much weight. "Linda not here," Dad's voice low and warning. "No," Emily said, her voice rising. "No, you can't keep doing this." "Emily," Dad said firmly, "we're doing what we need to do." "No, you're doing what's easiest," Emily shot back. "You're letting her die so you can save yourselves." There was silence, the kind that makes the air feel heavy. "You'll understand one day," Mom said softly, but there was no warmth in her voice. "I hope I never do," Emily whispered. Their footsteps faded, leaving the room in a heavy silence. Megan came back and adjusting the blankets around me, her hand lingering on my shoulder. "You've got someone fighting for you now," she whispered. "Don't give up, Tessa." When she left, I listened to the rain, counting the seconds between the thunder. I thought about Grandma June, about the smell of cinnamon in her kitchen, about the way she would tuck a blanket around me when I fell asleep on the couch, whispering, "You're stronger than you know." And I decided she was right. I wasn't going to let them take anything else from me. Not my life, not my home, not my future. In that darkness, I made a promise that would become the foundation for everything I would do next. If I made it out of this, they would never get the chance to destroy me again. They thought I was gone. They were wrong. Have you ever felt betrayed by the people you trusted most? What would you have done if you were me? Share your story in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this, because this is just the beginning. They didn't know I heard everything. The soft beeping of the monitors became my heartbeat in the dark. The hiss of the ventilator was my breath when my lungs couldn't work on their own. I counted those sounds, reminding myself I was still alive, even if they didn't want me to be. Then one morning I felt warmth against my hand and a voice I had come to depend on. "It's a good day to wake up, Tessa," Megan said softly. The rain finally stopped. She was always here, this nurse with kind eyes and a tired smile. She would play music on her phone, soft, acoustic songs, or Taylor Swift, filling the room with something human. She would talk about her dog, about the cherry blossoms blooming too early in Seattle, about the way the city smelled like wet pavement, and hope. She believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. I tried to move, tried to squeeze her hand. At first nothing happened, but then I felt the smallest twitch in my fingers. "Oh my God, Tessa," Megan whispered. "Do that again." I did. She squeezed my hand back, her breath catching. "You're coming back," she whispered. The days blurred as I fought to reclaim each piece of myself. I learned how to open my eyes even though the light stabbed like knives. I blinked against the brightness, my vision clearing to the sight of Megan's relieved smile. "There you are," she whispered. I learned how to breathe without the ventilator, even though it felt like drowning every breath a war. When they removed the tube, my throat burned and my voice was a rasp. "Water," I managed to croak, and Megan's eyes filled with tears as she held a cup to my lips. I took small sips, the water cold and sharp, reminding me that I was alive, that I was here. They moved me to a recovery room, the machines replaced by quiet, the only sounds my ragged breaths and the soft hum of Megan's phone when she played music to fill the silence. One morning she brought in a small radio, setting it on the windowsill. "You need some motivation," she said, turning the dial until a soft indie song filled the room. I listened, letting the music soak into the cracks of me that still felt broken. Every day, physical therapy started. They lifted me from the bed, my body screaming in protest, my vision going white with pain. Again I whispered, gripping the walker until my knuckles turned white. Megan stood beside me, her hand on my shoulder. "You're stronger than you think, Tessa," she said. Each step was fire through my ribs, pain tearing down my spine. But I took another step, then another, until I stood on my own, sweat dripping down my back, tears in my eyes. "I'm here," I whispered to myself. "I'm still here." Between therapy sessions, Megan would check my phone, reading emails from Sophie Kim, my business partner and the only person outside of this hospital I trusted. Sophie sent updates about the company, about the software we were building, about the competitors trying to poach our clients while I was fighting to breathe. "Don't worry about this, Tess," Sophie wrote. "I've got it. Just get better." Sometimes Megan would read Sophie's words to me in the quiet of the evening, and I would let myself believe that there was still a world waiting for me, that I still had a life worth fighting for. But at night, when the lights dimmed and Megan went home, the memories came back. The sound of my mother's voice, cold and sharp. "She's not worth it." The way my father said, "We have another daughter." They thought I would never know. They were wrong. One afternoon, the rain drummed softly against the hospital window. I was sitting up in bed, the tray in front of me covered with untouched lunch, my arms shaking from the effort of holding myself upright. Megan walked in, her hair pulled back, a tired smile on her face. "You're getting stronger," she said, checking the monitors. I nodded, swallowing the dryness in my throat. "Any news?" I asked, my voice a whisper, rough but mine. She hesitated, glancing at my phone on the nightstand. "Sophie emailed again," Megan said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Your competitor BrightMed tried to undercut your contract with Bellevue. Sophie shut them down." I let out a breath, closing my eyes. "She's good," I whispered. "She said to tell you that your team is waiting," Megan said softly. "But they want you back. They need you." I blinked hard, my chest tightening. I wasn't done. I had a reason to fight. That evening, as the sky turned deep blue, a soft knock came at the door. I turned my head slowly, seeing Emily step in, clutching a coffee cup, her eyes red. She looked so small standing there in her scrubs, her hair in a messy bun, her shoulders trembling. "Hi," she said, her voice breaking. I didn't answer. I just looked at her. She stepped closer, her fingers tightening around the coffee cup. I didn't know what to say," Emily whispered. "I've been coming here, but I couldn't come in." I could see the guilt in her eyes, the way she tried to swallow it down. She set the coffee on the tray, her hands shaking. "I heard them," Emily said, tears sliding down her cheeks. "Mom and Dad. I heard what they said about you. About letting you go. About the house." I stayed silent, letting her words fill the room. "I didn't know what to do," she whispered. "I wanted to say something, but I was scared. I didn't want to lose them. I didn't want them to hate me." She wiped her face with the sleeve of her scrubs, her breath coming out in gasps. "I'm so sorry, Tessa," Emily choked out. "I'm so sorry I didn't fight for you." The beeping of the monitor was steady, the only sound between us as I watched her fall apart. "You just let them leave me," I whispered, my voice like broken glass. Emily shook her head, stepping closer. "I know," she said, her voice cracking. "I know, and I hate myself for it." She dropped to her knees beside the bed, clutching my hand. "I'm here now," Emily said. "I want to fix this. I want to help you. I want to fight with you." I looked down at her, seeing the fear, the regret, the love all twisted together in her tear-streaked face. I let the silence hang between us, letting her words sink in, letting her feel the weight of what she had done, of what she hadn't done. Then I squeezed her hand, my grip weak, but enough. She looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. I took a shaky breath, my heart pounding. "Emily," I whispered, my voice steady now. "Are you going to stand with me? Have you ever had to ask someone if they would finally choose you? Would you forgive them?" Share your story in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. Because the moment she answered would change everything. Emily's fingers tightened around mine, her nails digging in as if she was afraid I would slip away. I know you hate me, she whispered, her voice shaking. You have every right to. I looked at her, really looked at her the way I hadn't in years. She was my little sister, the one who used to follow me around the backyard, begging me to push her on the swing, the one who would sneak into my room when she had nightmares. But she was also the one who stood silent while Mom and Dad decided I wasn't worth saving. You should have said something. I whispered, each word costing me breath. You should have fought. Emily nodded, tears dripping onto the blanket. I know, she said, her shoulders trembling. I was weak, Tessa. I wanted to believe them when they said you'd want them to save the family. I wanted to believe it because it meant I didn't have to choose. I swallowed the memory of their voices, cold and final, slicing through me. You didn't have to choose, I echoed, my voice rising, my chest burning with every word. You did choose. You chose them. Emily flinched, pressing a hand to her mouth as she sobbed. I know, she choked out. I know, and I will regret it for the rest of my life. I closed my eyes, trying to steady the shaking in my arms, the pain that pulsed through my ribs. I opened them again, forcing myself to hold her gaze. I heard everything I said, my voice calm, now cold. Every word they said. Every word you didn't. Emily's eyes widened, horror flashing across her face. Tessa, I didn't know you could. I could, I said, cutting her off. I heard Mom say I wasn't worth it. I heard Dad say you were the one who mattered. Emily shook her head, reaching for me, but I pulled my hand back. I didn't agree with them, she pleaded. I swear, Tessa, I didn't. Then why didn't you fight, I whispered. She broke, then sobs tearing from her chest as she buried her face in her hands. I was scared, she cried. They've always controlled everything. I didn't want to lose them. I didn't want to lose everything. I let her cry, the silence between us heavy with everything that had been lost. The rain started again, soft against the window, the gray light filling the room. I can't change what I did. Emily whispered, her voice raw. But I can stand with you now. I can fight for you now. I studied her, the way her shoulders shook, the way her eyes were red and swollen, the way her hands trembled as she reached for me again. I let her take my hand, letting her warmth seep into my cold skin. I don't need you to fight for me, I said quietly. I need you to fight with me. Emily looked up, her eyes meeting mine, tears clinging to her lashes. I will, she whispered. I promise, Tess. I will. I nodded, letting out a shaky breath. Then we start now, I said. She blinked, confused. Start what? Taking back what they tried to take from me, I said, my voice steady. Taking back my life. Emily wiped her tears, her jaw tightening. Okay, she whispered. Okay. I leaned back against the pillows, exhaustion pulling at me, but a spark of something stronger burned in my chest. They're going to fight us, Emily said softly. Let them, I replied. She squeezed my hand, her eyes clear, now determined. I'm sorry, it took me so long, she whispered. I know, I said, closing my eyes for a moment. But you're here now. The rain fell harder, tapping against the glass, like a promise, like a warning. I opened my eyes and looked at her. Emily, I said, my voice quiet but sharp, cutting through the noise of the monitors. She straightened, waiting. Are you going to stand with me? I asked again, slower this time. She didn't hesitate. Yes, she said, her voice clear. I will. And for the first time since I woke up, I believed her. Have you ever had to decide who you would stand with when it mattered most? What would you have done if you were me? Share your story in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this, because this was the moment everything changed. My grandmother left me a letter, and the truth no one expected. It was raining again the morning David Warren walked into my hospital room. He wore a gray suit, rain speckled on the shoulders, his silver hair damp, briefcase clutched in one hand. Tessa, he said, his voice warm but firm. I'm David. I was a friend of your grandmother, June. His eyes softened as he took in the hospital bed, the ivy lines, the bruises that still painted my skin. She wanted me to give you this, he said, pulling a thick envelope from his briefcase. My fingers shook as I reached for it, the paper heavy in my hand. What is it? I asked, my voice hoarse. Your grandmother's final words, David said softly. And the truth about everything. I looked down at the envelope, her handwriting on the front looping and steady. My heart pounded as I opened it, unfolding the letter inside. The scent of old paper and lavender hit me, a memory of her hugs, of her soft laugh in the kitchen. My dearest Tessa, if you're reading this, it means I couldn't tell you myself. I wanted to so many times, but I was afraid. Afraid of hurting you, afraid of breaking apart what little family you had left. But the truth is yours to know. You are my granddaughter by blood, but you are also your mother's daughter. Linda is your mother, Tessa. My hands shook the paper, rattling as I tried to breathe. Before she married Harold, Linda had you a child from a man she loved deeply but could not marry. Her family forced her to give you up, and I stepped in, promising to keep you close. When Linda married Harold, they took you in, claiming you as their adopted daughter to the world but never telling you the truth. Emily is their legal child, born after they married. But you, Tessa, were always a reminder to Linda of the past she tried to forget, and to Harold you were never his. I know this is a heavy truth, but you deserve to know who you are. You are not a burden, Tessa. You never were. You are brave, brilliant, and kind, and I am so proud of you. All my love forever, Grandma June. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes, dripping onto the paper. I looked up at David, my voice breaking. Is this true? He nodded, pulling out a file from his briefcase. Your grandmother made sure you would be protected, he said, laying out documents on the table. This is her will. She left everything to you, Tessa. The house, her accounts, her shares in the community trust. I blinked, trying to process the weight of it all. But Linda and Harold, I whispered, they said they needed the house to save the family. They wanted to sell it. David's jaw tightened. They don't have the right, he said. Your grandmother made sure of that. The rain pounded harder against the window, matching the storm building in my chest. They left me to die in a hospital bed. Not just for money. Not just to save themselves, but to erase me. To erase the proof of Linda's past, to erase the reminder of the life she lived before Harold, to erase the inconvenience I had always been to them. And I realized in that moment, clutching the letter to my chest, that I would never let them erase me again. I pressed the letter against my chest, feeling the weight of every word. For so long I thought I was nothing but a burden to them, a shadow in their perfect family, but I was blood. I was Linda's daughter, and they had thrown me away to hide the truth. David cleared his throat, pulling me back into the room. Tessa, there's more, he said, sliding another document toward me. I picked it up, my hands still trembling. This is the legal confirmation, he explained. Your grandmother filed an affidavit years ago stating your true parentage in case Linda or Harold ever contested your rights to the inheritance. I stared at the paper, the black ink sharp against the white. All this time, I whispered. They lied to me. They lied to everyone. David's eyes softened. I know this is a lot to take in, he said, but you deserve to know who you are. I set the papers down, pressing my fingers to my temples, trying to steady the pounding in my head. She kept this for me, I whispered, looking at the envelope again. Grandma June. She always saw me. She loved you deeply, David said. She wanted to protect you even when others wouldn't. Tears slipped down my cheeks, but I didn't wipe them away. What do I do now? I asked, my voice small. David leaned forward. Now you take back what's yours, he said firmly. Your parents cannot sell that house. They have no claim over it. You are the rightful heir. The rain outside slowed, turning into a soft drizzle against the glass. I thought about Harold and Linda sitting in their kitchen, whispering about debts, about selling the house to save the company, about getting rid of the problem once and for all. I thought about them standing over my hospital bed, telling the doctors I wasn't worth saving, that I wasn't really their daughter. They thought they could bury me and my past, but they didn't know I was still here. They didn't know I had heard every word. I looked at David, feeling something sharp and clear settling in my chest. I won't let them get away with it, I said. His lips twitched into a small smile. I didn't think you would, he replied. There was a knock on the door, and Emily stepped in, her eyes red, her hair damp from the rain. She froze when she saw David, then looked at the papers on my lap. What's going on? She asked quietly. I looked at her, seeing not just my sister, but the living proof of everything I wasn't to them. The daughter they wanted, the daughter they chose. But Emily was also the girl who cried by my bedside who said she would fight with me. I held up the letter. "This," I said, my voice steady, "is the truth they've been hiding." Emily stepped forward, her eyes scanning the letter, the document's confusion and fear mixing on her face. "What does it mean?" she asked, her voice trembling. "It means," I said, my eyes locking with hers, "that I am Linda's daughter. Her first daughter. And they abandoned me to hide it." Emily staggered back, her hand covering her mouth. "Oh my God," she whispered. I watched her carefully, measuring her reaction, waiting to see which side she would choose. She looked up at me, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Tessa, I didn't know," she said. "I swear I didn't know." I took a breath, steadying myself against the bed. "Emily," I said, my voice sharp but calm, "I need to know." She blinked, confused. "Know what?" she asked. I met her gaze, letting her see the steel in my eyes. "Are you with me," I said, "or are you with them? Have you ever had to ask your own family where their loyalty truly lies? What would you have done if you were me? Share your story in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. Because this was the moment I decided they would pay for what they did. I didn't need revenge. I just needed them to know the truth. The first thing I did when I could walk without help was call a security company. 2 days later, the locks on Grandma June's house were changed and cameras were installed in every hallway, every entrance, every corner they might crawl into to take what wasn't theirs. I walked through the old house with David beside me, the floors creaking under my steps, the scent of lavender and wood polish clinging to the air. It felt like she was still here, watching me, nodding in quiet approval. "This house is yours," Tessa, David said, handing me the new set of keys. "They have no claim to it." I clenched the keys in my palm, the metal biting into my skin, grounding me. "Good," I said. "Because I'm not leaving." We set up a small folding table in the dining room, papers spread across the surface, legal documents, property records, and copies of the hospital footage David had obtained for me. Footage that showed Harold and Linda standing by my bed, telling the doctors they wouldn't pay, that I wasn't worth saving. It wasn't just words anymore. It was evidence. I opened my laptop and started typing. My fingers hovered over the keys before I began. "Harold and Linda Reynolds. You once told the doctors I wasn't your responsibility. You once decided I wasn't worth saving. You once thought you could erase me to protect yourselves. Attached is a USB drive containing video proof of your words, your betrayal, your choice to abandon me. Enclosed are legal documents proving I am the rightful heir to June Reynolds' estate, including this house you intend to steal. I am not asking for your love. I am not asking for your forgiveness. I am informing you that your lies end here. If you continue to pursue this house, if you continue to take what isn't yours, I will make this video public. Not to shame you. Not to ruin you. But to show the world who you truly are. This is your final warning." Tessa, I signed it, printed it, and slipped it into an envelope along with the USB drive. David watched me, his expression unreadable. "You're sure about this?" he asked. I looked around the room at the light streaming through the stained glass windows, at the fireplace where Grandma June would read to me at night. "Yes," I said. "I'm sure." He nodded, taking the envelope from me. "I'll make sure it's waiting here the day they arrive," David said. I closed my laptop, my heart pounding but steady. This wasn't revenge. This was truth. This was reclaiming the life they tried to erase. The morning they were supposed to arrive, I stood in the foyer of Grandma June's house, the keys cold in my hand. Rain tapped against the windows, soft but relentless, like a drum counting down. David texted me to confirm the letter, and USB were in place on the dining table, right where Harold and Linda would see it the moment they stepped through the door. I walked through the house slowly, checking each room, each camera light blinking, green, recording every second, every word, every lie they might try to spin. In the kitchen, I ran my hand over the counter where Grandma used to bake cookies, the faint scent of cinnamon still buried in the wood. "They will see this house is mine," I whispered. An hour later, I saw Emily's car pull into the driveway. She stepped out, clutching her phone, her eyes finding me through the window. She knocked once before pushing the door open, rain dripping from her hair. "Tessa," she said, breathless, "you can't do this." I crossed my arms, leaning against the hallway wall. "Can't do what?" I asked calmly. "You can't send them that video," Emily pleaded. "You can't. You can't destroy them like this. I studied her, the way her hands trembled, the way her eyes were red from crying. They destroyed themselves, I said, my voice even. I'm just letting them see it. Emily stepped closer, her eyes desperate. Please, she whispered. Mom will fall apart. Dad will. He'll lose everything. Their friends, their business. Everything. They chose that, I said. When they left me to die. Emily shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. I know what they did was wrong, she sobbed. I know, and I'm not asking you to forgive them, but please don't do this. I felt something tighten in my chest, old memories of us building pillow forts, of me holding her hand on her first day of school, of her whispering my name when she had nightmares. But that girl was gone, and so was the sister I thought I had. This is not about revenge, Emily, I said, my voice sharp. This is about truth. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand. They're our parents, she said, her voice cracking. No, I said, stepping closer. They're your parents. Emily flinched as if I had struck her. Tessa, please, she whispered again, don't make this public. I stared at her, seeing the fear, the conflict in her eyes, the way she was torn between the family she loved and the truth she could no longer deny. They will have a choice, I said, my voice calm, clear. They can walk away, leave this house, and never look back. Or I will release that video and they will watch the life they built on lies crumble around them. Emily sank into a chair, burying her face in her hands. I don't want to lose you, she whispered through her tears. I looked at her, my heart heavy but steady. If they want to save themselves, I said softly, they will have to beg me. Emily lifted her head, her eyes wide, her breath catching. Tessa, please, she said one last time. But I turned away, walking toward the window as Harold and Linda's car pulled into the driveway. Have you ever had to choose between protecting the truth and protecting your family's lies? What would you have done if you were me? Share your story in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. Because this was the moment they would finally learn who I really was. They thought they had won. Until they read the letter. I watched from the upstairs hallway camera as Harold's black SUV pulled into Grandma June's driveway. The engine cut off, the silence stretching as they sat inside. Linda was the first to step out, clutching her purse like a shield, her eyes scanning the front porch. Harold followed, checking his watch, his jaw tight. Emily trailed behind them, her hair tied back, her hands in her pockets, shoulders tense. Harold tried the front door, rattling the handle, confusion flashing across his face when it didn't open. The locks, he muttered, pulling out his phone. She changed the damn locks. Linda knocked sharply, as if the house would suddenly obey her command. When nothing happened, Harold pulled out the spare key they had hidden under the porch light, but it didn't fit. She can't do this, Linda hissed, her voice rising. She already did, Emily whispered. They moved around to the side door, then the back, finding every lock changed, every entrance secured. I imagined Harold's face turning red, Linda's eyes darting with fear. Finally, Harold pulled out the emergency contact card David left for them, and a security guard arrived to let them in under David's instructions, watching them with cool detachment. The moment they stepped inside, they saw the camera's small black eyes blinking quietly in the corners of every room. What the hell is this? Harold snapped, looking up at one, pointing. She's watching us, Linda whispered, her voice shaking. Emily stepped further into the house, her eyes catching the white envelope on the dining table, the words Tessa Reynolds written in my neat handwriting. She froze, swallowing hard. Harold snatched it up, tearing the envelope open with shaking hands. The letter unfolded, his eyes moving quickly across the words, the color draining from his face with each line. Linda stepped closer, trying to read over his shoulder. What does it say? She demanded. Harold didn't answer, his eyes stuck on the last line, his lips moving silently. Harold, what does it say? Linda's voice cracked, reaching for the letter. He let her take it, and I watched as her hands began to shake, the paper rattling as she read the truth I had written. When she reached the part about the USB, her knees buckled and she sank into one of Grandma June's dining chairs, her face pale, her lips trembling. Where is it? She whispered. Emily moved forward, spotting the small black USB drive resting next to the vase of lavender on the table. Her hand hovered over it before she picked it up. Emily, don't, Harold barked, reaching for it. But Emily stepped back, clutching it to her chest. I need to see it, she said, her voice tight. Linda sobbed, pressing a hand over her mouth, tears streaking her mascara. Don't, Linda pleaded. Please, Emily, don't play it. But Emily walked to the television, inserting the USB into the port. The screen flickered before showing the hospital room, the cold fluorescent lights, the machines beeping steadily. Then their voices filled the room. She's not worth it. She's not really our daughter. We don't owe her anything. Linda let out a strangled cry, shaking her head, covering her ears as if she could block out the truth. Harold's face was stone, but I saw the twitch in his jaw, the fear in his eyes as he turned away from the screen. Emily stood there, tears streaming down her face as she watched her parents frozen in the frame, condemning me to die. She reached for the remote with trembling hands, pausing the video on Harold's face, his words hanging in the silence. She's not really our daughter. Emily turned to look at them, clutching the USB in her fist. How could you? She whispered. Linda sobbed harder, her body shaking, while Harold pulled out his phone, dialing quickly. Gerald, it's Harold, he snapped into the phone. We have a situation. We need to contain this. Now. Emily's eyes widened as she stepped back. Don't you dare, she said, her voice shaking but loud. Don't you dare try to bury this. Harold's eyes snapped up, glaring at her. Give me the USB, Emily, he ordered. She tightened her grip, her knuckles white. No, she said, her voice breaking. I'm done protecting you. Harold stepped toward her, but Emily stepped back again, lifting her chin. I'm done lying for you, she said. And for the first time they saw the daughter they had always wanted standing against them. Harold's face turned red, veins bulging at his temples as he stepped closer. Emily, give it to me, he demanded, his hand outstretched, voice low and sharp. Emily shook her head, tears running down her cheeks, but her grip on the USB never loosened. No, she said again, her voice stronger this time. You don't get to hide this. Linda reached for Emily's arm, her eyes pleading, mascara streaking down her face. Please, honey, Linda begged, her voice trembling. Please don't do this to us. Emily's eyes snapped to her mother, a flash of anger breaking through the tears. I'm not doing this to you, Emily shot back. You did this to her. Linda's face crumpled, her shoulders shaking as she collapsed back into the chair, sobs breaking the silence. Harold dropped his hand, his jaw tight, his eyes darting to the paused video on the screen. This will ruin everything, he hissed. The business, our reputation, your future, Emily. Emily wiped her tears roughly with the back of her hand. Maybe it should, she said, her voice cold. Harold turned away, pulling out his phone again, pacing as he spoke into it. Gerald, get the paperwork ready, he snapped. If she releases that video, we will sue for defamation. We will bury her. Emily laughed, a broken, sharp sound that filled the room. You think you can bury her again, she said, her voice rising. You already tried, Dad. You already left her to die. Harold spun around, his face dark. Enough, he barked. You don't understand the damage this will cause. I understand perfectly, Emily said, clutching the USB. I'm done pretending. Linda lifted her head, her eyes red and swollen. Emily, please, she whispered, we're your parents. Emily's lips trembled, but she shook her head. You were supposed to be hers too, she said softly. Harold opened his mouth to argue, but his phone buzzed in his hand. He glanced at it, cursing under his breath before stepping out of the dining room to take the call. Linda reached for Emily again, but Emily stepped back, holding the USB tighter. I need to go, Emily said quietly. Linda's hand dropped, her face falling as fresh tears rolled down. Emily, don't leave, Linda begged, her voice breaking. Emily's eyes met her mother's one last time. I already did, she whispered. She turned and walked out of the house, the front door closing softly behind her. I was watching all of it from my phone, sitting on Grandma June's porch, the cold air biting at my skin, the Seattle sky heavy with gray clouds. My phone buzzed with a message. They're calling me, trying to get me to convince you to stop, Emily's text read. I stared at the words, the memory of their faces when they read the letter burning in my mind. Tell them to wait, I typed back. The three dots flickered for a moment before she responded. Okay. I slipped my phone into my pocket, leaning back against the porch railing, letting the cold wind fill my lungs. They thought they could silence me. They thought they could control her. They were wrong. Have you ever had to watch the truth destroy everything just to set yourself free? What would you have done if you were me? Share your story in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. Because this was only the beginning. I sat there feeling the wind press against my face as I replayed Emily's words in my head. They're calling me, trying to get me to convince you to stop. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Emily. They're saying they'll lose everything if you release the video. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the keyboard, remembering the look in Harold's eyes when he told the doctor to let me die. Remembering Linda's silence as she turned away. Emily sent another message. Mom is crying. She says she's sorry. She wants to talk to you. I closed my eyes, leaning my head back, letting the cold air numb the heat that burned in my chest. Sorry. The word felt like smoke slipping through fingers never enough to hold. My phone buzzed again. Please, Tessa. I don't know what to do. I took a slow breath before I typed back. You don't have to do anything, Em. The dots flickered. They're asking if I can bring you to the house so we can talk. I imagined them sitting in Grandma June's dining room, the USB in Emily's pocket, the video still frozen on the television, their voices echoing through the empty house, reminding them of the truth they wanted to bury. They wanted to negotiate, to plead, to spin it into something that would save them. But they never thought about saving me. Emily sent another message. Will you come? I typed slowly. They can wait. The dots appeared, then disappeared, then came back again. I can't keep doing this, Tess. My chest tightened, but I let the feeling settle. Then don't, I wrote back. This isn't your burden. The phone was silent for a few minutes before it buzzed again. I don't want to lose you too. I stared at that message, feeling something crack inside me, but I swallowed it down. You won't, I wrote back. I slipped the phone back into my pocket, pushing myself off the porch, the wood creaking under my weight. The rain started to fall again, cold drops soaking into my hair, dripping down my face. I walked down the steps and into the grass, letting the rain wash over me, letting it soak through my clothes as the sky turned darker. I pulled out my phone and called David. He answered on the first ring. Tessa, he said, his voice calm, steady the way it always was. Are you ready? I looked up at the sky, letting the rain hit my skin. Yes, I said. You know this will be messy, he warned. I closed my eyes, remembering the sound of the monitors in the hospital, the feeling of not being able to move, the voices telling the doctor to let me go. I know, I said. And you're sure you want to go through with it? He asked. I opened my eyes, looking back at the house, at the windows that glowed with the warm light of the life Grandma June built for me. They were never going to stop, I said quietly. They were never going to let me live. David was silent for a moment before he spoke again. I'll draft the release letter and prepare the media kit, he said. If they want to negotiate, they'll have to come to you. I felt the wind push against me, the rain dripping from my lashes. Good, I said. Let them wait. I ended the call, slipping the phone into my pocket, letting the rain drip from my hair onto my shoulders. My phone buzzed again, another message from Emily. They're scared, Tessa. I've never seen them like this. I could almost see her sitting in the car outside the house, clutching the USB, her hands shaking. They should be, I typed back. She didn't reply for a long time, and I didn't expect her to. I walked back to the porch, water dripping from my clothes onto the wood, leaving small dark spots. I sat down, pulling my knees to my chest, staring out at the dark street. The rain slowed to a drizzle, the clouds breaking just enough for the streetlights to reflect on the wet pavement. My phone buzzed one last time. They want me to ask you what it will take for you not to release the video. I let out a breath, steady and calm, feeling the cold seep into my bones. Tell them to think about what they did, I typed back, pressing send, because for once they would feel the weight of what they chose. Have you ever had to make a choice between peace and truth? What would you have done if you were me? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. Because they were about to learn that I would not be erased again. They once left me to die. Now they need me to save them. I sat across the table in David's office, the polished wood reflecting the cold fluorescent lights. The air smelled like old books and rain-soaked wool from our coats. The door opened and Harold walked in, first, shoulders hunched, suit, wrinkled hair thinner than I remembered. Linda followed, moving slower, her face pale, eyes sunken, clutching Emily's arm for balance. Emily's eyes were red, her face tight with worry as she helped Linda to the chair across from me. For a moment no one spoke. Only the ticking of the clock on the wall filled the silence. Harold cleared his throat, but his voice cracked when he finally spoke. "Tessa," he said, forcing a smile that never reached his eyes, "thank you for meeting us." I leaned back, folding my hands, letting the silence stretch until I saw him squirm. Linda's eyes welled with tears as she reached across the table. "Honey," she whispered, "we're in a difficult situation." I looked at her hand, then back at her face, saying nothing. Harold shifted in his seat, clearing his throat again. "The video," he began it. "It's caused some problems." I raised an eyebrow, still silent. "Our clients, our partners," he continued, "they've all pulled out. The media won't stop calling. We're on the verge of losing everything." Linda let out a sob, her shoulders shaking as Emily rubbed her back gently. "Tessa," Emily said softly, "Mom's sick. She needs surgery and their insurance was dropped because of the company's collapse." Linda's eyes met mine, pleading. "I need this surgery, Tessa," she whispered, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Please. We need your help." Harold's jaw clenched before he suddenly slid off the chair, dropping to his knees in front of me. "Tessa, please," he said, his voice cracking, eyes wet. "Help us. Help your mother." I looked down at him, remembering the sound of his voice when he told the doctor to let me die. "She's not our responsibility. She's not really our daughter." Now here he was on the floor, calling me his daughter when it was convenient, when it served him. Emily knelt beside him, grabbing my hand. "Tessa," she whispered, her voice shaking, "please. I know they don't deserve it, but Mom does. She's sick and she needs you." I stared at her, my chest tightening as memories of us as kids came flooding back, her tiny hand grabbing mine as we crossed the street, the nights she'd crawl into my bed after a nightmare. Linda sobbed, pressing her hands together in prayer. "Please, Tessa," she cried, "please, I'm begging you." Harold's head dropped, tears dripping onto the carpet. "We're begging you," he said quietly. I took a breath, steady and calm, letting the silence hold them there on their knees, waiting. I let the moment stretch, watching Harold's shoulders shake as he held back tears, his hands clutching the hem of my coat. Linda's sobs filled the room, the sound sharp and small, like something breaking over and over. "Tessa, we made mistakes." Harold choked out, looking up at me with eyes I didn't recognize. "We were scared, we didn't know what to do." Linda wiped her tears with shaking hands. "I thought I was protecting you," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "I thought letting you go was better than letting you live with our failures." Emily's eyes flicked between them and me, her hands twisting the fabric of her sweater. "Tessa, please don't let her die." Emily begged softly, tears pooling again. "I know you're hurt, I know they don't deserve your help, but please don't let her die." I glanced at David in the corner, watching quietly, his expression unreadable. The only sound was the ticking of the clock, the sound of Linda's uneven breaths, Harold's muffled weeping. "You want me to help you?" I asked, my voice quiet. Harold's head snapped up, hope flickering in his eyes. "Yes, yes, anything," he stammered. "Please, we'll do anything." I tilted my head, studying him, letting the weight of every memory sit between us. The hospital room. The cold beeping of the monitors. Their voices telling the doctor I wasn't worth saving. "Anything," I repeated, my voice flat. Linda nodded, desperately pressing her palms together. "Anything, Tessa, I swear," she cried. "I'll do anything to make it right." Emily swallowed hard, her hand trembling as she reached for mine again. "Please, Tess," she whispered, "if not for them, then for me." I looked into her eyes, seeing the fear, the hope, the desperation. For a brief moment, I saw the little sister who once believed I could fix anything. I let out a breath, slow and controlled. "Get up," I said, my voice low. Harold blinked, confusion crossing his face as he slowly stood, Linda clutching his arm to steady herself. I sat back in the chair, crossing my arms. "You will listen carefully," I said, letting each word drop heavy into the silence. "Because this isn't about saving you." They both froze, the hope in their faces flickering, waiting for what came next. "Because this isn't about saving you. This is about saving Emily." Linda's lips parted, confusion clouding her eyes, tears still hanging on her lashes. "What do you mean?" Harold asked, his voice cracking. I leaned forward, letting my elbows rest on my knees, letting them see the steel in my eyes. You abandoned me, I said calmly, but she never did. Emily's breath caught her hand gripping the chair as she looked at me, eyes wide and wet. You want me to help with the surgery, with the bills, with the mess you made with your company. I continued, letting each word hit them. Fine. Linda let out a sob of relief, sagging against Harold's side. But you will sign everything over to Emily, I said, my voice sharp, clear, unflinching. The house, what's left of the company, your assets. Harold's face went red, his mouth opening in protest. You can't be serious, he snapped, anger flashing in his eyes. I tilted my head, my expression flat. Then you can walk out that door and I will let the world watch you lose everything, I said softly. Linda shook her head, panic in her eyes. No, please Harold, please, she begged, clutching at his arm. She's giving us a chance. Harold glared at me, but I didn't flinch. You think you can control us, he hissed. No, I replied. I'm giving Emily the chance you never gave me. Emily's hand flew to her mouth, a broken sob escaping as she turned away, her shoulders shaking. Linda reached for me, her hand trembling. Please, Tessa, she whispered, please, I will sign anything, I will do anything. Just help me. Harold's fists clenched at his sides, his eyes cold, but I saw the fear there, the reality, sinking in. You will sign the documents today, I said, glancing at David, who stepped forward, placing the folder on the table. Emily will own everything. You will leave her the house, the business, whatever is left. Harold looked at the folder like it was a bomb. You will stay out of her way, I continued. You will let her live her life without dragging her down. Linda nodded frantically, tears dripping onto the table. Yes, yes, anything, she gasped. Emily turned her eyes, red tears streaking her cheeks. Why are you doing this? She whispered. I looked at her, letting the silence sit for a moment. Because you're my sister, I said quietly. And I won't let them ruin you too. Emily's sob broke and she sank into the chair, covering her face with her hands. Harold stood there frozen, staring at me, his face pale, his lips pressed into a thin line. I stood walking past him, pausing at his shoulder. You should have thought about this when you left me in that hospital bed, I said softly. He flinched but didn't respond. David opened the folder, sliding the papers toward Harold and Linda. Sign, David said firmly. Linda grabbed the pen with shaking hands, scribbling her name, tears dripping onto the paper. Harold's hand hovered before he finally took the pen, pressing it to the paper, each signature like a knife cutting away his pride. Emily looked up at me, tears in her eyes. Thank you, she whispered. I nodded once, turning toward the door. As I reached for the handle, I looked back at them one last time. You wanted me to save you, I said. I'm not. I'm saving her. And I walked out, letting the door close behind me, knowing this was only the beginning. Have you ever had to save someone who once let you drown? What would you have done if you were me? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. Because they were about to learn what it meant to lose everything they once took for granted. I didn't save them to earn their love. I did it to reclaim my freedom. The paperwork was signed on a cold Thursday morning, the rain tapping against David's office windows like a metronome, marking the end of an era. Harold couldn't look me in the eye when he handed over the signed documents. His hands were shaking, his face pale, his lips pressed into a thin, bitter line. Linda sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes red but dry, as if there were no tears left to cry. Emily sat beside me, her hand resting on mine, grounding me as David double-checked each page before nodding. It's done, David said, sliding the papers into a folder. I took a slow breath, feeling a weight lift from my chest, replaced by a cold, quiet calm. Harold cleared his throat. So that's it then, he said, his voice rough. You'll pay for the surgery, I nodded once. I'll cover Mom's surgery and her recovery bills, I said. Emily will finish her residency without worrying about debt. Linda swallowed, her eyes glancing at me before darting away. And we leave Portland, Harold said, his jaw tightening. You leave Oregon. I corrected. You don't call, you don't write, you don't show up. You disappear and you let Emily live her life. Linda's lips trembled. Will you ever forgive us, Tessa? She whispered. I met her gaze, letting the silence stretch until she looked down at the floor. I don't need your apologies, I said calmly. I need your absence. Harold's nostrils flared, but he stayed silent, his hands curling into fists before he shoved them into his pockets. Emily squeezed my hand, tears filling her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "For doing this." I turned to her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I'm not doing this for them," I said softly. "I'm doing this for you." Outside, the rain eased into a drizzle as Harold and Linda stood, gathering their coats, looking smaller than I had ever seen them. Linda paused at the door, glancing back. "Goodbye, Tessa," she said, her voice barely a whisper. I didn't respond, and she turned away, following Harold out of the office, the door closing softly behind them. Emily let out a shaky breath, leaning into me, her tears wetting my sweater. "They're really gone," she whispered. I wrapped my arm around her, holding her close as she cried, the weight of years lifting off both our shoulders, making room for something new. We walked out of David's office into the crisp Portland air, the smell of rain clinging to the sidewalks as cars splashed through puddles. Emily slipped her hand into mine as we crossed the street, her grip warm, grounding me in a way I didn't know I needed. We didn't say much on the drive home, the windshield wipers ticking back and forth, a steady rhythm as the city passed by outside. When we pulled up to Grandma June's house, Emily let out a soft breath. "It feels different now," she said, her voice quiet. "It is different," I replied, shutting off the engine. Inside, the house felt warm, the scent of cinnamon and coffee still lingering from that morning. The floors creaked as we stepped in, but it felt like a promise, not a burden. Emily dropped her bag by the stairs and looked around, her eyes softening. "I still can't believe you're letting me stay here," she said. I shrugged, kicking off my shoes. "It's your home too," I said simply. She turned, tears forming again, but this time they were gentle, grateful. "I'm going to make this right," she said. "For both of us." I nodded, unable to find words, so I pulled her into a hug, feeling her shoulders relax as she hugged me back. In the evenings, we sat on the porch, Emily studying for her residency exams, me answering emails from the board as our startup software rolled out to more hospitals across the country. Every ping of my inbox reminded me that what nearly destroyed me became the reason I saved others. We spent Sundays cleaning out the attic, sorting Grandma June's old boxes, laughing at photos of us in cheap Halloween costumes covered in chocolate and dirt. We cooked dinners together, Emily burning toast, while I overcooked the pasta, and we ended up ordering pizza, sitting on the kitchen floor, eating straight from the box. At night, I would lie in bed and listen to the quiet, the soft hum of the old radiator, the creaks of the house settling, the gentle reminder that I was safe. One Friday, we invited Sophie, Megan, and David over for dinner. Sophie brought wine, Megan brought her wife, and David arrived with a pie from the bakery down the street. We crowded around the small dining table, passing plates, laughing at stupid stories, arguing over whether pineapple belonged on pizza. After dinner, Sophie lifted her glass, looking around the table. "To family," she said, her eyes glancing at me. David raised his glass next. "To the family we choose," he said. Megan smiled, her hand on her wife's, nodding. Emily's eyes met mine, glistening, and she lifted her glass with a shaky smile. "To the family that stays," she whispered. I lifted my glass, the warm light of the kitchen reflecting in the glass, in their eyes, in the life we were building together. We clinked glasses, the soft chime ringing through the room, sealing the promise we were making to ourselves. As we laughed, I caught a glimpse of myself in the window, seeing the reflection of a woman who was no longer begging to be loved but choosing who she allowed into her life. And I knew that was enough. If you've ever felt abandoned, remember that family isn't blood. Family is who stays when you need them most. What would you have done if you were me? Have you ever had to choose yourself to finally be free? Share your story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. Because justice exists, and sometimes you can be the one to create it.